Hello and welcome to Sports Today. Deep Das Gupta, you are welcome to join. I know you are at backstage. Please join because we've got a full team there. Full team. Please join. Why are we here on Sports Today at 4:30? This is not the time we come. I would have anyway come to you at 5, but there was a news item in the Australian media. There's a news item in the Australian media 2 days back, which said with a photograph that Virat Kohli and Hardik Pandya have breached or had breached the biosafety protocols in Sydney when they were there. So this became a talking point. This became a talking point that they had breached these protocols. And it was like as if the Indians are repeat offenders. They have committed multiple biosafety breaches. The Queensland minister, who now is a very famous name in India, Madam Davies, said don't come. So all of it was adding to the fact that as if the Indians are habitual offenders. And we kept saying on Sports Today that at no point in time did the Indian players breach any protocol. We are ambassadors. We respect the biosafety protocols of Australia, of every particular state in Australia, and we will continue to respect and adhere to every protocol of the country. No one said we will not play in Brisbane. No one said we will not respect protocols in Sydney. No one said a word, yet they were maligned, there was slander, there was criticism, arrogant statements were made. So what did we do? We decided to go into the depths of the matter here on Sports Today. Our colleague Norman Kochanek, who will be joining us on this particular show, Norman Kochanek was requested. There's Norman. We've got Rajarshi. We will have Deep Das Gupta also. There's Deep. We will have Ridhima as well. Norman was requested by us to do something for us. What did he do? He went to meet at the Baby Village store in Bondi Junction. He went to meet the owner, a guy called Nathan Pongrass, the owner of the Baby Village store. Let me get this right. Yes, Nathan Pongrass, the owner of the Baby Village store at Bondi Junction in Sydney. Norman Kochanek, that is the photograph that you guys saw, ladies and gentlemen. A photograph of Virat and Hardik Pandya visiting the Baby Village store at Bondi Junction in Sydney, which was apparently a bio protocol breach. So Norman Kochanek, on behalf of Sports Today, went to meet the owner, Nathan Pongrass, and here's what Nathan Pongrass has to say. Take a listen, and we will come and talk about it at length. But please listen to what Nathan Pongrass, an Australian and the owner of this store at Bondi Junction, the Baby Village store, has to say about the Australian media and about this visit by Virat Kohli and Hardik Pandya. Can we have the clip, please?
They came in, they spent a little bit of time. At that stage, there were no restrictions here in New South Wales. To be honest with you, I was sort of torn. We'd love to give them gifts, but they wanted to pay for everything, and they were just so generous with their time. They spent time talking with our staff, and they were just lovely people. It was a very normal experience, and to end up, they were kind enough to take a couple of photos with our team who wanted to sort of share their experience with their families. So we took a couple of photos. We put that on social media just purely as like on Instagram, Baby Village, we just wanted to share that. Again, being proud of the fact that they had chosen to shop at our store. Our staff were not allowed to touch them or shake hands or anything. So even though there were no restrictions at the time, they were very much
keeping their distance.
Keeping their distance, absolutely. So
they don't have any masks though, do they?
I don't believe masks were there. But again, as I said before, masks were, at that time, we hadn't had cases in New South Wales for a while.
Some 20 odd days, wasn't it?
Exactly, and no one was wearing masks. If you looked, through the streets, very few, it was maybe 1 in 50 were wearing masks. It was very minimal amounts, and most of the people that were wearing masks were older people. And at that time, masks were just still not being worn, even by pregnant people here in Australia.
That's a good point, actually.
Or I should say in Sydney or New South Wales. So, that was the experience that we had. It was a very positive experience. It's really a shame that what's happened in the media, I think, because of it, because I think they had a good experience, we had a good experience, and it was a very wholesome experience as well.
Thank you very much, Nathan. I really appreciate that. Really appreciate it.
Excellent. So did you hear what he said, Nathan Pongras? If any of you found the audio a little bit problematic, let me say very clearly. He said there was no breach of any sort of protocol because at that point in time, there were no mask requirements in Sydney because the number of cases were less or hardly any at that point in time. Even after that, the two players did not shake hands with anybody in the store. The two players maintained social distancing. The two players did not breach a single protocol, and so did the store. So, and he used the word shame, that what is happening in the media, or the Australian media for that matter, is shameful. So there you heard it. The store owner, Nathan Pongras, the store owner of Baby Village at Bondi Junction, talking to Norman Kochanek this morning in Sydney, clearly, conclusively telling us that what is happening in the Australian media is nothing but an attempt at slander. Let me get Norman into this debate before I go to all of my guests. Deep Dasgupta, and for this one, Ridhima Pathak is also my guest. So I will go to her as well for her reaction, because every cricket fan needs to opine on it. Norman Kochanek, you went to meet Nathan Pongras this morning. We've played out the clip for our viewers. Tell us 3 points that I said: shameful reporting or misrepresentation of facts. 2, no breach of protocol whatsoever by the Indians. 3, to say that Cricket Australia knew it, but unofficially knew it and all of that. Is this a figment of the Australian media, Norman Kochanek?
Well, when I entered the store, as the way that Nathan describes it, the whole concept of a genuine, wholesome experience is exactly what you get. It's an incredible baby village, the shop itself, the store. It has a great variety of goods. And the very fact that anyone would turn that into a circus regarding that there's a problem with protocols is quite ridiculous. He said the word shame. It is a shame because it was very shameful the way in which it came across, and he was quite shocked. The man and his wife Jess they own the store, they run the store, they've got a magnificent layout. They're more than welcoming. They did everything correctly, and the players themselves had no intention of doing anything other than the right thing, keeping the distances. There was some 20 odd days of 0 cases in Sydney. We were in a magnificent state of affairs. He said that there was only 1 out of 50 people on the streets that had masks. Admittedly, today there's probably 49 out of 50. That's a very different circumstance. But then there were no reasons to be wearing a mask or in that situation. The two gentlemen were amazing. They insisted on paying. They were almost welcoming them in the store. They were quite happy to have them in. They were going to actually give them the goods as a gift, but they insisted on buying. In fact, they bought beyond what they needed to buy. They were so impressed with what they could buy. And quite frankly, it's testament to the store. The reality is that this whole media is a real beat up in the true sense of the word. It's just to derail certain aspects of cricket at the moment, finding nitpicking little bits of information. These people happily put the picture on Instagram. They were proud to have them in the store. It made their day. They actually told me that they have a lot of celebrities going to their store because they're in an area of the eastern suburbs of Sydney. A lot of celebrities go there anyway. They're very used to that. But they were probably taken aback at how humble Virat and Hardik were actually. The way they approached the store, they were more than happy. It was amazing.
Thank you, Norman. Thank you. Great. Deep, you've heard the clip. You have heard Nathan Pongras, the owner. You have heard him term his own media as shameful. You've heard Norman's experience. Your thoughts?
See, I think I've mentioned this before that obviously knowing what we know of the Indian side, and especially someone like Virat and Hardik, I mean, they're very, very responsible people. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't jeopardize, because we're talking about the Indian captain here, right? He wouldn't jeopardize the whole series, not just himself, his own personal image, but the image of the Indian cricket team. And all of us, when we tour abroad, we are ambassadors of the country. I'm sure he's very well aware of it, and he takes that image very, very seriously, and he won't jeopardize that. And those photographs that has came out now, I mean, those were obviously out of context, as the owner, Mr. Nathan, just mentioned in that thing, and Norman also mentioned that 20 days ago this wasn't there, the protocol wasn't there. So you don't take things out of context. The other important thing is, if you look at those pictures, if you see all the people in those pictures, they had safe distancing. Nobody was crowding onto the other space. There was distance between them. And listen, I've said this before, Boria. I think this is a twofold effort. One is to derail India's preparation, and also take the focus away from the Australian side and their defeat in the last Test match, or kind of trouble that the Australian side itself finds itself at this point in time. So I think it's just an effort on those two fronts.
Ridhima, if I can come to you and Rajarshi, as responsible journalists, if a media organization acts like this and their lie is caught out, would you not expect an apology? That this was a very slanderous, clandestine, below the belt attempt at ridiculing and showing off Virat Kohli and Hardik Pandya in a bad light. But now Nathan Pongras conclusively telling Norman Kochanek, no breach of protocol. Even after no rule at that point in time, they maintained distance. They did not shake hands. They did not do anything which was not allowed. So why this? I mean, your thoughts, and as a responsible journalist, how do you react to such kind of a story?
But the fact that this particular incident has grown so much out of proportion, it happened on the December 7th, and very rightly, as we pointed out, that it is a little out of context right now. But the fact that it has gone out of proportion, an apology would sort of calm things down, and that's the way to move forward. So yes, it would be interesting if that does happen, especially because there is no proof or there's no evidence. Rather, the evidence is contrary to what was written. So an apology would be interesting. But having said that, Boria, that this particular event is such a high-profile event that any spark can become a flame. So I would also say that this incident is, it's just vindictive to the kind of proportion this particular event is happening at, and that's the reason why that's where the attention is focused.
Okay, Rajarshi, if I can ask you, if you are there, Rajarshi, are you there? If you are there, I want to ask you, that Foxtel is actually Australia's partner. I mean, Cricket Australia's partner, right? Norman, am I right? I mean, they have the rights, right? Correct. So they were writing that Cricket Australia was aware of the breach of protocol unofficially. Now, clearly there was no breach of protocol. So if Cricket Australia was aware, there was no breach of protocol. So don't we expect a reaction or a clarification from Cricket Australia saying, hey, there was no breach of protocol? Like Nick Hockley put the record straight yesterday, that India never said we will not go to Brisbane, we will not play in Brisbane, we will not adhere to rules. India never said that. So Madam Minister was clearly out of line. What you've done is you've increased a little bit of your social media following in India. That you've done successfully. We give you that. But that's okay. You're welcome to. And you're like you said, don't come. We are saying do come. You're welcome to come on our channel and give your points of view. We will respect that. But isn't it important on the part of Cricket Australia to come out and say that that report was a lie? That report was a false report. That report at no point in time had any veracity because the Indians did not break protocol. Rajarshi, if you're not there, Norman, I want you to take that. I mean, would you expect Cricket Australia to clarify? Because ultimately, for example, if Star Sports puts out a broadcast today, they're partners of the BCCI, for God's sake. They have credibility. And here it's the Indian captain who's being targeted, Hardik Pandya being targeted, who are ambassadors in that particular country. And they were representatives. Millions of people follow Virat Kohli. Your thoughts, Norman Kochanek?
I totally agree, Boria. The reality is Cricket Australia's job is to be a mediator between any matter that relates to Australia. Now, if there's a conjecture about an Indian player breaking protocol and it's false, they should come out very quickly and say, no, it's clearly not the case. They've met protocol, end of story. That's the best way to deal with the media from both sides, whether it be the BCCI in your country with Star Sports and the like, or Cricket Australia in Australia. The reality is they haven't handled it very well. And certain other aspects of the media are quoting other matters. Even Yashpal Erder's restaurant, Masala Ferry, also had an accusation posed in the papers, the Sydney Morning Herald as well. So there's an element of grabbing onto small aspects of potential breaches and blowing them out of proportion. And really, Cricket Australia does have a role to be able to come in there and quell that by saying the facts and knocking on the head immediately. You're totally right.
Deep, as a cricketer, if you were Virat Kohli, yes, Ridhima, I'm coming to you in a second. Deep, as a cricketer, if you were Virat Kohli or Hardik Pandya, you've followed every rule to the T. 3 months in Dubai, then in Australia, then the way you conducted yourself, you behaved as Indian captain, you led the team with panache, you stood up what we call the values of India. Then this report comes out. Do we owe, or does Cricket Australia, or for that channel, for that media house, do they owe these two cricketers an apology?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, Virat is when we're talking about Virat outside, he's representing us. He's our captain. So I think something like that, a slander like that, attempted. I don't know whether they intentionally wanted to do it or didn't want to do it. But if you've got it wrong, you might as well, apologize or even not apologize. At least, I mean, issue a correction. I mean, you don't even have to apologize. Just issue a correction and just let people know that wasn't right. Because end of the day, what you've done is you've created a scenario, you've created a controversy where there wasn't any. And at least they can do is just a correction, I guess, saying that maybe those reports were wrong or maybe the sources were not right or whatever it is. And they do deserve it. I mean, listen, we're talking about the captain of the Indian side. We're talking about Virat here. So I think, and I completely agree. I think the least they can do is a correction if things weren't right, or to the contrary, if they think it is right, then I think they should come out with more facts then.
Absolutely. Ridhima, you had a point?
Well, actually, Borita, I had a question. What was your reaction when you heard that particular audio for the first time?
Shocked. I mean, I expected this. I mean, I didn't expect the owner to use the word shameful. I didn't expect the owner to sort of almost conclusively demolish the slanderous attempt at maligning the Indians. It was quite shocking. I mean, frankly, you know what? India and Australia have come closer since Monkeygate. With IPL, with all of this, cricket has brought the two countries closer. One of my best friends is David Warner. One of my best friends is Michael Clark. And I consider them family. They're that close. So, not only media, players, if you go and see David Warner and Natarajan, if anyone was delighted at T. Natarajan's success as an international bowler, and I'm putting it on record, that's David Warner. David Warner, every day, by the way, every day, including today, has called twice to check on Saurav Ganguly. That is the kind of camaraderie we now have between India and Australia. And irresponsible, foolish reporting, which is not based in fact, can destroy this relationship, bring the two boards at loggerheads, because you are taking on and criticizing or portraying the Indian captain in a bad light. This is not expected from a responsible media organization, which also has a certain link with Cricket Australia. And that is the bad part of this whole story. Norman Kochanek, when you went, the same question that Ridhima asked me, what was your reaction when Nathan Pongrass actually told you what he told you? By the way, we are going to play this clip again. So my producer, please cue the clip. After Norman answers, we are going to play the clip again for our viewers. Norman.
Look, Nathan couldn't be more hospitable to me. He was so genuine, such a decent person. He has an amazing business there. He does nothing but the right thing. His staff were incredibly friendly. They quickly welcomed me in. They brought me upstairs. They sat me down. The whole reaction was they were very disappointed because they couldn't think highly enough of Virat Kohli and Pandya. They were amazingly well respected. They were actually lauded over. And they were quite devastated that humble post, which they were proud to have on their Instagram, turned into a bit of a debacle. Quite frankly, it was shameful. And they felt very disappointed because they got such a great store, a great feeling, and they were nothing but hospitable. And I was quite shocked. The most approachable owner of an establishment I've ever met. And he was able to still come out with those words. It just shows you how somewhat damaging the whole thing has been unnecessarily. Well, you have to visit that store. It's amazing.
Again, so we were quoting Nathan Pongrass, owner of the Baby Village Bondi Junction store in Sydney. If we can cue that clip once more before I take concluding comments from Deep and Ridhima and close out this show. We've had to set the record straight on Sports Today. From day one, we've said something. If Virat was out of line, we would have called it. If Hardik was out of line, we would have called it. But in this case, they weren't. And you've got to respect them for what they've gone through. And now you've got to respect them by issuing a correction or an apology, as Deep Dasgupta said. Can we have the clip once more, please?
They came in, they spent a little bit of time. At that stage, there were no restrictions here in New South Wales. To be honest with you, I was sort of torn. We'd love to sort of give them gifts, but they wanted to pay for everything, and they were just so generous with their time. They spent time talking with our staff, and they were just lovely people. It was a very normal experience, and to end up, they were kind enough to take a couple of photos with our team who wanted to sort of share their experience with their families. So we took a couple of photos. We put that on social media just purely as a like on Instagram, Baby Village, yeah, we just wanted to share that, again, being proud of the fact that they had chosen to shop at our store. Our staff were not allowed to touch them or shake hands or anything, so even though there were no restrictions at the time, they were very much
Keeping their distance.
Keeping their distance, absolutely. So,
They didn't have any masks though, did they?
I don't believe masks were there. But again, as I said before, masks were, at that time, we hadn't had cases in New South Wales for a while.
Some 20 odd days, wasn't it?
Exactly, and no one was wearing masks. If you looked through the streets, very few, it was maybe 1 in 50 were wearing masks. It was very minimal amounts, and most of the people that were wearing masks were older people. And at that time, masks were just still not being worn, even by pregnant people here in Australia.
That's a good point, actually.
Or I should say in Sydney or New South Wales. So, that was the experience that we had. It was a very positive experience. It's really a shame that what's happened in the media, I think, because of it. Because I think they had a good experience, we had a good experience, and it was a very wholesome experience as well.
Thank you very much, Nathan. I really appreciate that. Really appreciate it.
Ridhima, we are often accused in the media of sensationalism, and it is a slur on media across. As a journalist, not as part of Sports Today, detach yourself from Sports Today and tell me objectively, if you heard that evidence that we played, are you convinced that this was no breach of protocol? Are you convinced about it? Shall we conclusively say that there was no breach of protocol and it was a malicious attempt at maligning these two players? Am I right in saying that?
Definitely no breach of protocol, and that can be very evidently been made out of that particular audio. I like the word that Norman used. I would call it unnecessary. I think that's the right word for this. It is unnecessary. And I'm just really happy that for the Indian players and our team, our stance is clarified.
Excellent. Deep Dasgupta, you have the last word. And every Sports Today viewer, join me at 5 at 5. And after that, Deep and Ridhima will be back for a very special show. Today is the 50th anniversary of ODI cricket. 50th anniversary. So it'll be down memory lane. Deep has been part of it. Sachin called me and I said, you were 25 years part of it, Sachin. 50 years of which 25 were yours. So you should do a video. So Sachin will also probably do a video. And Lakshman Shivaramakrishnan, very special guest, will join us, Deep. One of our high points of the ODI game, 1985, Benson and Hedges win in Australia. And I've asked Shiva to actually wear that particular shirt with which he got the finals wickets in Australia in 1985. So Deep Dasgupta, you have the last word on this.
Well, on this, I'd say this, that it's sad, but I'm not completely surprised that something like this has happened. But you know what? It's also a shame that I think India-Australia series, whether it's in India or in Australia, it's so competitive and it's just great cricket that you get to watch. Two very, very good sides against each other. And it's just a shame that, the focus is not on the cricket and it's off the field stuff, which again, I think Ridhima used a very nice word and I think a relevant word, which is unnecessary.
Okay, so on that note, Norman Kochanek, thank you very much for taking the trouble of going to the store on our behalf, on behalf of Sports Today, and getting us conclusive evidence that I hope settles this debate once and for all, puts the controversy to bed. Correction or no correction, we are convinced that it was a wrong and slanderous attempt. As I said, 5 at 5, straight after, in a couple of minutes, join me As I tell you, Rohit Sharma, where is he batting? Is he back on 7th? He is. And I tell you about Saurav Ganguly's possible discharge tomorrow and a lot more. 5 at 5. Keep watching Sports Today. This is your afternoon with Ridhima, me, Deep. Norman, time for you to go to bed after a good Indian curry. Thanks for watching.
Love it.